All right, welcome to the Drill Down Podcast. We've got the business stories behind Stocks and Move. I'm Cory Johnson with episode number 248. Well, just ahead, Rivian Automotive puts up a kind of blah quarter, but the question is, will they live long enough to get their next car out? And Arista Networks, the company, puts up a great quarter, catching up, gaining ground on Cisco. But is AI coming fast enough? And speaking of AI, PegaSystems CEO Alan Trefler joins us in an exclusive interview to talk about some really cool software they've got to help companies develop their plans on how to work with AI. But first, sponsor time.
The Drill Down is brought to you by BrainTrust, a global talent network that matches highly skilled technical freelancers with the world's most reputable brands. BrainTrust has helped clients like Bank of America, Goldman Sachs, Porsche, Under Armour, and more build agile tech teams fast at a fraction of the cost. Visit braintrust.com, that's BRAINTRUST.com to learn more and get 20% off when you use our link, braintrust.com/drilldown.
All right, I'm Futurum's Chief Market Strategist, Cory Johnson. Welcome to the Drill Down, where we explain the business stories behind some stocks and a move. Joining me the mic, as always, Ben Wilson. Ben, glad to have you back.
Always a pleasure to be here, Cory. Cory, what stocks are you drilling down on today?
Well, I'm going to start with Rivian.
Rivian Automotive trades with the ticker RIVN with a market cap of about $11 billion. Shares are up 7% in the last week, but for the last 12 months, shares are down 18%. So what is the story with Rivian?
Do you see these vehicles around where you are in Portland?
It hasn't stood out to me, Cory. It doesn't seem as common as maybe they want to be.
I have a neighbor who has one of the SUVs, and it looks super cool. And I see the Amazon trucks. Amazon has a big stake in this company and has a lot of trucks, the Rivian electric trucks doing deliveries, and I see those around too. But this is, next to Tesla, the biggest pure play battery electric vehicle maker in the US. And they like to boast that they are the number one in making electric vehicles, electric trucks in the US. But they're smaller, cheaper cars. They're R2, a versatile, what they say will be versatile, mid-size SUV, and eventually a mid-size crossover and a souped-up version of that. They say that's going to be the key to their business, and they don't have that done yet. So they've made some really big changes in their business to accelerate that plan to get those vehicles out. They had a very long development schedule that they realized they just don't have the runway to get there. They were taking a long walk off a short pier financially. And when you looked at the results they put up last week, you could kind of see that. In the quarter that ended in March, they delivered 13,588 vehicles, which brought them $1.2 billion in revenues. The problem is, despite the $1.2 billion in revenues, they lost $1.484 billion in loss. And indeed, they're now down to $5.979 billion. Let's give them credit for $6 billion in cash and equivalents. And when you're burning through $1.5 billion a quarter and you've only got $6 billion in cash in the bank, you wonder, was it the right move to say we can rush to get the R2 done by 2026 if even that runway isn't long enough? And the CEO was asked about that in the conference call, RJ Coringe, and he talked about how this business, by using the existing workers that they have and going into the factory that they have in Normal, Illinois, that is the name of the town where their factory is based, that maybe they can get this thing done fast, and everyone feels that urge to get this thing done.
What's harder to measure in the numbers was just the ability to leverage the existing teams and the operations that we have in Normal. And those teams, it's taken us a lot of time, but we've built strong teams, strong leadership, at the shop level. And I spend a lot of time at the plant, a lot of time on the floor with our team members, and that buildup of training capabilities, learning capabilities, leadership at the team leader, group leader, manager, and director level across the plant is something we'll now be able to leverage, and it takes not only risk out of the R2 timing, but allowed us to pull R2 into the first half of 2026. Now, there's not a single person within Rivian that isn't trying to find ways to pull R2 forward, but we would love to see R2 sooner. The amount of excitement for the product is palpable, notwithstanding the excitement that we all have for it on our own. But we also want to ensure that the product, when it hits the market, is exceptional.
So Ben, exceptional would be good, but finished would be good too.
I think even at this point, normal in Normal, Illinois would be good for them.
Well, they want a car that's a little abnormal, a little better than normal. The cars look super cool. I don't know if they're fun to drive, but we wish them well. But my goodness, they might need a lot more money. The current burn rate, they're going to need a lot more money, and I think that's why the stock has reacted as it has.
Cory, what's your next drill down?
Let's look at Arista Networks.
Arista Networks trades with the ticker ANET, A-N-E-T, with a market cap of about $96 billion. Shares are up 11% in the last week, but for the last 12 months, shares are up 124%. So what's the story with Arista Networks?
So yeah, Arista, I don't know.
One or the other.
The way to think,
potato.
so these days when we cover technology companies, when it's a B2B company, like a networking company like Arista, I think eyes tend to glaze over. Think of this company as a Cisco revenge. It is filled with former Cisco executives on the board. The CEO is a former Cisco executive. They want to take down Cisco. They wake up every morning thinking of exactly how to do that. And so when they reported this quarter, pretty good quarter, revenue's up 17% to $1.57 billion. Fantastic gross margins for a company that sells software and hardware of 64%, and well above what they were in the first quarter of last year. And their operating margins, right? The money the business created after gross margins, after all the expenses, really impressive, 47.4%, a lot better than it was a year ago. But the number that they like to point to, and they cite other industry sources and so on, is how they are gaining ground on Cisco in terms of market share and in terms of the dollars spent. And quarter by quarter and year after year, you can see these guys saying, we're getting closer. Hey, Cisco, do you hear us coming? Now claiming to have nearly 30% market share with Cisco at 34.3, at least at the end of 2023. And so they really think that AI is the chance for them to really leapfrog Cisco and get ahead of them. But they're looking at the slow development of AI data centers. We think of these things as so fast. When you're looking at a day-to-day and week-to-week basis, they recognize that what you really need is faster creation of these graphic processor units, but that's only part of it to build out a data center and an AI facility where you've got to also have electricity. You've got to have cooling. You've got to get these NVIDIA Blackwell chips. Those aren't even in the market yet. That's going to take a while, and Arista needs that to happen to really hit the big numbers. Here's the CEO, Jayshree Ullal.
I think we could do better next year, but your point is well taken that in order to go from 10,000s of GPUs to, 30, 50, 100,000, a lot of things have to come together. First of all, let's talk about the data center or AI center facility itself. There's a tremendous amount of work and lead time that goes into the power, the cooling, the facilities. And so now when you're talking this kind of production as opposed to proving something in the lab, that's a key factor. The second one is the GPU, the number of GPUs, the location of the GPUs, the scale of the GPUs, the locality of these GPUs. Should they go with Blackwell? Should they, build with, a scale up inside the server or scale out to the network? So the whole center of gravity, what's nice to watch, which is why we're more constructive on the 2025 numbers, is that the GPU lead times have significantly improved, which means more and more of our customers will get more GPUs, which in turn means they can build out the scale-out network.
So this rush towards AI still takes a minute, Ben, and I think that we see investors anxious to see it happen. They certainly see the excitement, but there's some physical construction that has to go into making these things happen, and that's taken a minute.
Cory, what's your next drill down?
I want to look at ARM Holdings.
ARM Holdings, another company that's doing real well, trades with the ticker ARM, A-R-M, with the market cap about $123 billion. Shares are up 9% for the last week, but for the last 12 months, shares are up again about 130% since its September IPO. So what's the story with ARM?
Yeah, I want to look at what it's doing right now. So just for the day, it's up 7% as we record this right now. And the company reported a quarter last week, I should say, that was, I thought, a kind of impressive quarter. Their revenues were up 47% on a year-over-year basis. You can't be not impressed by that. But when profits, whatever profits are fantastic because it's a licensing business. They're not saddled with the problems of manufacturing. But fundamentally, this is a mobile phone business. And so there's a report out today by Nikkei Asia saying that this company is going to develop AI chips focused on AI with products arriving in 2025. And that they're going to set up an entirely new division. The company hasn't commented on this yet. And that mass production will be handled by contract manufacturers like they do with all their other things. But that they're going to have this AI chip division up and running by spring of 2025. And that it's going to lead to possibly billions of yen in development costs. I mentioned yen because SoftBank has been the biggest backer of this company in the past, prior to its IPO. And that the SoftBank is, according to this report, likely to come in again to support this development. It has a stock flying today, but really, when you're thinking, why would this company that's already doing so well and doing so much make a new push into AI? Because when you look at it historically, and they shared some charts in the most recent investor update, when you look at their market share by chip value, while ARM has a lot of market share, you look a little more specifically, almost all of that is in mobile, or at least a substantial portion, a little less than 50%. But their cloud and networking business is a small fraction of that, maybe less than 20%. And in order for them to get bigger in AI, and indeed most of the value in the chip business is going to NVIDIA right now in the world with fantastic operating margins. If they're going to compete with that, it's going to take an entirely new effort. They think they can get there. They think they can get there fast. And indeed, if they're going to develop AI chips, they've still got to deal with this pesky problem that most of their business, or at least the majority of their business, is in the mobile phone market. And so the mobile phone market's biggest problem is what? China. China mobile phone sales have been slow. And the question put to the CFO during the conference call wasn't about when are you going to get AI chips going, but when are you going to get mobile phone chips sold into China? And they had, I thought, kind of positive things. Here's the former CFO of Groupon, which is how I think of him, Jason Child. He was at Splunk as well and has done lots of things, but I first ran into him when he had left Amazon and went to Groupon. But Jason Child, an impressive guy, here's what he had to say at ARM Holdings.
I would say there has been a little bit of recovery in China in the handset market. It was up, 1.5%, 2% or so year on year going back to the December quarter. So a little bit was just the general market. But the bigger impact was, I would say, the mix shift of the Chinese consumer buying from, I would say, OEMs or partners. Our revenues are based on more the customer is based on where the partner who effectively sold the product was. So basically, there was a transfer from Chinese customers buying from Chinese, producers versus someone from outside of China. And so what that shows up as, from a royalty perspective, a shift from rest of the world to related parties. And by the way, related parties is mostly China. There are other parties in there as well. Now, in terms of the March quarter end, you will see similar trends. The rest of the world did accelerate. We saw a pretty significant royalty acceleration from, 11-12% back in Q3, and it was 37% in Q4. So there is broad-based increase across the world, but you are going to see more acceleration also in China for really the same factors that we saw back in Q3 as well.
So if the mobile phone business wasn't so important to this company, they wouldn't have to worry about it so much if they had this AI business that they don't have. And who doesn't want to sell the most expensive anything, certainly the most expensive semiconductors? Perhaps if this Nikkei result, this Nikkei story proves to be true, you can understand why ARM would want to be there.
Yeah, it seems like kind of a nuanced take on it, but hopefully that strategy works for
Right.
them.
We want to see confirmation of the story. It was interesting. The idea that they could be in production next year of these chips would be a colossal task, given that it's taken the entirety of the entire existence of the transistor to get to this point. The idea that these guys can get up and running here would be an impressive feat, indeed. All right, well, let's speaking of impressive, PegaSystems is a company that's been around for a while, a few decades, out of Boston, a tech company that's an important company, maybe a company we don't hear from a lot. They're doing some really, really interesting things with AI. that pretty much any business person could use when they try to imagine how they can form their business using a free AI tool that is impressive stuff. We're going to dig into that with the CEO, Alan Trefler, right after this.
The Drill Down is brought to you by Era. Never miss another critical event or insight ever. With Era, customize your company watch list and track key events, mentions, filings, and more, all within an easy-to-use, customizable interface. That's Era, AIERA.com.
All right, welcome back to the Drill Down Podcast. We're joined right now by Adam Trefler, the CEO of PegaSystems. One word, strangely, but that's a true fact. Why is it one word?
Well, you can just say PEGA.
Okay, we'll just say PEGA. That's fine.
Yeah, PegaSystems sounds a little bit presumptuous, but
that's okay. It's your company. You can be presumptuous. But tell me about the business and what problems you're solving.
So we're fortunate to deal with a lot of the largest and most sophisticated companies in the world, and they tend to have serious opportunities to improve their businesses using AI to drive decisions and to automate workflows. And so we have a world-class decision engine that you might have encountered if you talk to a large telco or a bank, and it would recommend a next best action for what either the rep or you should do, depending on the channel you're in, or a workflow if you ever were to dispute a credit card charge. Odds are that it was our software, one of the many companies that uses it for that handles that. And that's true not just for things like those types of transactions, but also for a lot of processes in governments, healthcare organizations, and insurance companies and other places that have sophisticated processes. We automate them, we structure them, we give people insight into them. And now with AI, we're doing continuous optimization.
I was at a function last night and I ran into a business school professor who was casting aspersions on AI, saying no one's actually using it for anything yet. It's just like a search engine. And I suggested to him some other things that are actually going on. But it occurred to me when knowing that I was going to talk to you today that there's some real life cases of AI, things happening with AI that weren't happening a couple of years ago that you guys are doing, that the consumer doesn't really know that it's happening.
Well, if I were to sort of explain a little bit of the hype and BS that does correctly exist around AI, I would start by saying that it's broadly misunderstood. And if you want me to take 30 seconds and explain, AI has a leg that is what I would describe as statistical AI. That's machine learning from numbers, looking for patterns, trying to make decisions around, maybe credit risk or where you want to invest. And that's a really important part of our business. And we've been doing that now for more than 12 years and doing it in real time, doing it in the sort of transactional environments I described to you. But there are also two other forms of AI that are not well understood. One is the use of generative AI to do what I would call features, to be able to, for example, summarize a phone call or to be able to rewrite a piece of correspondence or a note. And there are very valuable use cases there, and we're doing a lot of work adding those types of features, and there are a lot of other companies doing it as well. And the third use, which I don't see anybody else doing, is to actually use generative AI to improve the very processes themselves. And we're very excited about that. We just shipped a new product capability just 3 weeks ago called Blueprint that I think really is going to shake up this part of the market. And you can check it out on our website. It's very real.
Can you describe that further? What do you mean to improve processes themselves?
Well, if you go create a blueprint on our site at pega.com/blueprint, and it's open to everybody, you can begin to describe something about the business process you want to automate. What type of business is it? Is it a bank, or maybe you're opening a skateboard shop in San Francisco there? And you can literally put in any type of business, provide a brief description of the type of business that you have, and then what the blueprint will do is, using the power of generative AI, it will tell you, hey, these are the outcomes that you need. These are the things you need to do to develop this business and to grow this business, or even to start the business. And then for each of those things, it will tell you what are the stages of the workflows you have to go through and what the steps are. And then it will tell you what data it needs in every one of those workflows. And it will tell you what systems it might need to interface on the outside with, and what sort of personas, what sort of people would be using the system at different points. And lay this all out, where in the course of literally 2 or 3 minutes, it does what used to take 2 or 3 weeks to brainstorm that sort of creative thinking. Really very, very dramatic.
That's fascinating. I read about that in your comments from your most recent conference call, and went on the site and saw this. What's the business model for you behind that?
Well, the business model is we want people to try it, we want people to use it, and on our website we don't charge for it. However,
that's a great business. That's good thinking, Alan.
We've built a business. We expect to do $1.5 billion this year, so we do figure out how to charge for some things. But you want to make sure you can capture the imagination and add value to people before you start having that monetization discussion. But at the end of it, if you want, you can press a button and Blueprint will be loaded into your PEGA system. And so this thing you've conceptualized, you've thought about, you've envisioned, you now can turn that into actual running workflows with screens and with the record keeping you need. And it gets you massively closer to being able to bring real digital transformation and automation to a business than, once again, anything else I've seen out there.
It's fascinating. It's got to be fun, too, to deal with businesses at that level of ideation.
It is. And it really requires, what we're really trying to do is use the power of AI, which is enormous, and use the enormous knowledge that's embedded in the internet to bring design thinking principles to all the businesses, to make it so you don't need to bring in, your McKinsey for 3 weeks to ideate, to begin to think about how you want to re-envision your business. You still might want them, but at least you get to start from something that's a proposal based on the best practices from the internet, married with the best practices from PEGA's 40 years of experience.
What were the hardest parts about developing this?
Well, being able to conceptualize it, I think, is key. But the thing that was easiest about it is that we already had an architecture in our system that's what's called model-driven. That means we allowed people to define workflows in the metaphors that I described around stages and steps and personas and channels. And those are all concepts that were well-baked. So what we found is that we were able to take generative AI and just plug it in to this thing we call the layer cake, which is at the heart of our system. And that gave us a place where we could bring the knowledge in from the internet, where we could go back and forth between an expert or set of experts and the internet, and we could let people curate the processes, which is how you make sure that you're doing the right thing for the business, because you still have human judgment involved, even if it's being stimulated by what you're able to find out there.
So where is it being processed? Who are you working with the partners? What kind of processors is it running on? What kind of data centers and so on?
Well, it's very, very new. It runs on PEGA Cloud, which is our cloud environment here, which we operate on either AWS or GCP. It's using Microsoft Azure for access to the ChatGPT that helps power pieces of it. It uses vector databases to control and manage the PEGA assets. So it's bringing together a lot of technology, which our customers, if they just use this either on pega.com as a website or on PEGA Cloud, they don't have to worry about all of that. They can just worry about how they want to try to optimize and run their business.
It's a fascinating thing. I had a friend who's, the CEO of Brain Trust, one of our advertisers on the Drill Down, who quite a while ago, the CEO challenged everyone in his company and indeed his friends and people like me, what are you doing to use AI to change the way you work and really attack workflows, think about workflows, and find new ways to incorporate AI into everything that they were doing professionally. And I took that as a challenge myself, and it was really yielded some interesting things in my workflow and really has made me a lot more productive. It's interesting.
Well, what you can do with this is you can actually cut and paste a description of an existing workflow, cut it into the blueprint as an input, and say, all right, improve this, make this better, make it more understandable, make it something I can operationalize. And what you get in literally minutes, frankly, I've worked with AI going back since, I was teaching computers to play chess. That's how I got involved in computers when I was in college. And obviously a lot has changed over those decades. But this has frankly gone much farther than I think I or a lot of other people would have reasonably expected at this point in time. This technology is game changing. It is being hyped beyond all recognition, but you need to find the real kernels of truth that do exist there, because they do exist.
It's interesting to me that your company is based in Massachusetts, where it is and where you are. I would imagine there are some advantages to being out of the Silicon Valley buzz.
Well, I think that Massachusetts, particularly the Boston area where we're located, I'm from, used to be considered a technology hotbed.
Of course.
I think our PR just never kept up with Silicon Valley, but there's always been a lot of good things coming out of Massachusetts, and it's been a wonderful place to both find excellent, really capable staff. Though we're about 5,400 people now, so we're around the world. But it's been a terrific place, I think, to have hired when we were beginning. It's a great place for working with universities, and we find it just a very stimulating environment to operate in.
In the words of Rob Reiner from Spinal Tap, Boston, not a big college town.
Well, just a bit.
Still, just a little bit. When you look at the possibilities for AI, how do you try to map out for your own business what might be possible in a year or two that's not possible now?
Well, we've been spending a lot of time thinking about that, and we have a very healthy agenda for what we expect to be building between now and the end of the year. We have an event coming up in a month, literally on June 9th. We have PEGA World coming, which is our client event. We'll have over 4,000 customers and partners there, and we'll be showing off a lot of our latest stuff, some of which, candidly, we're still in the process of finishing up. But then we have a whole collection of additional capabilities that we'll be releasing in the second half of the year. So we've got a very, very full dance card when it comes to applying AI.
That's what we call a forward promote in the radio business. Why don't we leave it with that? Alan Trefler. Fascinating stuff coming on from PegaSystems. We appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Take care.
All right. Coming up next, The Bite. One number that tells us a whole lot.
The Drill Down is brought to you by Futurum Group, where analysts, researchers, advisors, content creators, and marketing experts help business leaders anticipate and understand shifts in their industries and build strategies to leverage disruptive innovation. With deep analysis, Futurum Group's extensive industry experience delivers reliable research and data, thought leadership, and actionable advice to help you with your strategy and go-to-market efforts. Futurum Group.
All right, we're back with the Drill Down Bite. I said one number that tells us a whole lot about PegaSystems. A great conversation I had there with Alan Trefler last time I was sitting in this seat in a different outfit, obviously. If you're watching. If you're listening, you might not know. Nonetheless, that number, 16%. So customer spending on their Pega cloud business, as opposed to the rest of the business at PegaSys, at PegaSystems, is up 16%, growing at 16%, what they measure, their annualized value of active contracts. Now, the rest of the business, the entire business, just 9%. So the Pega cloud business is so important because it shows faster growth, which is for a simpler to deliver business like this Blueprint business for these clients, and shifting their revenue towards a recurring model, which is just good news for PegaSystems. All right, thanks for listening to Drill Down Earnings. I'm Cory Johnson. Check me out at X, at Cory TV. You can check out our short earnings reports that I hope are really informative, and someone actually told me, Ben, that they are addictive.
I believe it.
Flattering.
I watch them a lot.
Well, you have to, and I do too, but some people actually just do it for fun and informative stuff at TikTok, at Instagram, at Drill Down Pod, and on the Futurum Group's YouTube page, where there's all that and lots more. Follow us, like us, dislike us if you most, subscribe, comment. I'll answer your comments, but we want to hear from you. Drill Down Earnings, part of 6.5 Media.